righty.
So welcome everybody. We are in session 2, Science of Reading, Advanced Phonological Awareness, Part 2. I'm Christy Yee. I'm the reading specialist at Skyline School and a former kindergarten teacher. And I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Luann Daniel Libman.
Hey, well, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm currently the Skyline principal. It's my first year in administration, but having spent about 5 years as a reading specialist, and before that, 17 years as a classroom teacher. And I have been associated with CRLP for about 20 years now. And I got started as when we brought the CRLP assessments to the district. It's been now, aging myself, about 20 years. And I have not left that because it's such a great organization and they bring so much research into the classroom and make it into a practical way in which we can teach our students so that they become stronger readers and learners. And so as with everything, this is just part of a 5-day longer, bigger session that CRLP provides. And so this is just a snippet of that institute, but we do have some opening routines that we like to incorporate here. And one of that is to ask you to have an intention for today's session. So take a moment, maybe jot down on a piece of paper on your notes or something like that, how you would like to show up today for us during this session. What is your intention? Taking risks. We're going to be asking you to participate and try out some of the stuff that we're talking. So maybe being open to taking risks. But I'm going to give you a second just to say, what is your intention for this session? And this is just for you. Okay. Okay, and so our goals for today is to give you a greater understanding of the connection between phonological processing and that reading circuit in the brain. We want to dive deeper into the 3 main components of phonological processing, which are phonological memory, rapid naming, and phonological awareness. And then third goal is to practice an instructional strategy for an advanced phonological awareness skill of oral segmenting. So if you can, we have 3 main components of today's session. So in the chat box, if you can, just go ahead and put down either 1, 2, or 3 of something that you are most interested in for today.
Great.
Okay, lots of 1s, lots of 3.
Yeah.
Some 2s. Wonderful. See, wonderful. Lots of names I recognize.
Yep. I love all the reading circuit in the brain, number 1, because we're all brain architects, right?
We are. Okay. Okay. All righty. And so just some of the logistics for our time together is really, making sure you take care of yourself. If you need to take a nature's break or anything like that, please feel free to do so. We hope that you're going to be present and engaged in this learning today. And be mindful of other learners, again, keeping muted until you're maybe in a breakout session, or if we open it up for questions, we ask that maybe you use the chat box. In a moment here, I'm going to show you where the Padlet is for other opportunities to put down any questions or wonderings you might have. And if you can keep your camera on, build a sense of community, particularly when you're in the breakout rooms, but we understand if you're unable to do that today. So don't worry if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And moving on here to our digital resources. And so Christy has dropped in the chat for us your digital resources. And this is going to be where you are going to be able to access all the tools that you're going to need for today's presentation. You can also use paper and pencil and your old-fashioned sticky notes if you choose. But let me walk you through the digital resources here. So these are just some graphics and resources here to remind you of some of the stuff that went over in the first session with George in November. And we have a Padlet, which we use as a collective processing place. And so if you go to the Padlet here, it's going to give you an opportunity to, if you have any questions or wonderings, you can use this as our digital parking lot. So if you have any wonderings or anything like that, you can just go ahead and place it here. And then throughout our session, we're going to ask you to comment or reflect on certain things that we have covered. Okay. So, and everybody able to get into the resources? We should be good there. Just let us know if you're having any difficulties with that. And so now we also like to take a look and poll and see how people are feeling about this material already. So the first question is going to be, which of these phonological processing components are you most familiar with? And then how confident are you in teaching phonological awareness for a student? So Christy's going to go ahead and launch that. Okay, so you're able to see it there. Okay, I see people populating it now.
That's awesome.
Okay. Okay, phonological awareness, definitely a lot of people are aware of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
About 77%.
Yeah, a lot of people are pretty confident.
Very confident. That's good.
Great.
Let's go. Let's end this thing and go get pancakes.
Yeah. All righty.
All right, I'll give it a few more minutes, or not minutes, seconds.
All righty.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Shall I end the poll?
Yep, I think we're pretty good.
All right. And I'll share results. And there you guys go.
Okay.
Oh, look at all these pros here. That's awesome. Okay.
Right.
And look at their pros at phonological awareness. That's good.
Yeah. This is great.
All right.
All righty. Okay, great. Thank you for participating in that. It's always nice to know where we are in the room. Okay, and so we're going to take a look here at some of the Common Core standards as it relates to then phonological awareness. And so there are 4 components of this, the phonological skills and the standards here, print concepts, phonological awareness, the phonics and word recognition, and of course, fluency. We're really going to be just taking a look closer today at the phonological awareness piece. We have here, and we did this in our last session together in November with George. We took a look here about how we have the foundational skills across all grade levels. And, you know, here phonological awareness really is only for kinder and first grade. However, we know that second graders need it, and sometimes even third, that need to have this continuously explicitly taught with them. We have the foundational skills here for you for just the kinder and first grade. You can see that, you know, it builds upon one another here. Moving on, in the bold right here is what California added to the Common Core state standards. Moving a lot. There's a lot to it. There's definitely a lot to our phonological awareness. So we talked in our first session a little bit about the science of reading, and we definitely have had a lot of conversations more and more about the science of reading in the reading circuit. And so I'm going to do my best to recap it for you. I am not a neuroscientist, but I do find it to be fascinating. And one of the things that we know is that there's 2 hemispheres in each, and then the left hemisphere within our brain is focusing more on analytical thought. This is when we're looking at like math and with logic. And then we have on the right side, which is more of our creative side, which is more of the holistic thought, intuition, music and art. But we know that the brain, large in part, takes place on the left side of the brain. And so Marianne Wolf, who is the director of the Institute of Dyslexia down in UCLA, has termed this the reading circuit. And she talks about how we have to go through this and to orthographically map what's inside our brain. And they were able to come up with this by looking at imaging through the functioning MRIs. And so we know that in this first, which is in the left part, like behind your ear here, is when you take a look at something, your brain is saying, is it a letter? What is this image here? And so it's identifying the letters initially and saying, okay, so these are my visual, I'm looking at it. I know that it's a meaning. And so we call this and have termed this as the letterbox area of the brain. Okay. So going back to letters, I'm going to go back up here. So if we have it like the word spring, you recognize SPR, and then you're chunking in already the ing together. And so you have that, you're going with the spring. And now you're going in here, okay, I saw that those are letters. Now there's going to be sound associated with those letters. And then with those sounds, I'm now putting those together. We have those sounds, and now it comes into language. I see the word now, I bring the SPR as a spur, and then ing, it comes into imaging of spring. Okay, there's several meanings that can go along with spring, the spring in your step, the spring in March time. And so that is where then the brain is processing with this all within milliseconds of this happening as you read the word. And then it's coming into, again, the cognition of where do I know this? Okay, spring. Oh, I'm thinking back to spring break. And what did I do? It was so lovely to have a vacation. And you're really then going back into your own background knowledge of this. And so all of this is happening as we are reading words. And so for some of the students, this can be a little bit more difficult because we're not hardwired this way. And so this is where our explicit routines and instruction are helping to get their brain to wire it so they become more of a reading brain, and the reading circuit is working as it should to recognize the letters as words. Okay, and so we're going to be spending a little bit more time talking about this. And so now we're going to be going over into the phonological processing. Hand it over to Christy for this.
I'm going to take over from there. Isn't it fascinating though? Wow, that we're asking this 5-year-old brain to do all those really complex circuitry, you know, and these processes. It's just a wonder that they learn how to read. All right, so now we're going to explore what is going on in the brain in the region where the phonological processing takes place. And we're going to shift from the brain's reading circuits and talk about that specific area of the brain that processes that phonological information. So I know we're all very adept, we're all dialed in with that term, phonological awareness. In George Ellis's November session, he really broke it down for us so expertly. He talked about the units of sound down to the phonemes. So the larger units being a compound word, a single syllable word, to the onset rhyme, right down to the individual phonemes, those individual discrete sounds. So we went from large scale macro down to the granular micro. And when we're working with phonemes, we talk about phonemic awareness. And George helped tease apart the phonemic awareness for us into those tasks of phoneme blending, phoneme segmentation, and phoneme manipulation. So that was a really good review of that November 1st session. But today we're going to focus about advanced phonological processing. And we're going to talk about the larger category. And this is a category under which phonological awareness and phonemic awareness lies. So phonological awareness is just one of the components, one of the skills that are occurring in the region of the brain when we're processing auditory information. Another key component under phonological processing is phonological memory. And that is how well we store information in our short-term memory. And an example of this might be when a waiter is taking your order and not writing it down on a notepad. They hear your order, they rush over to the computer to input that order. They are using their phonological memory. We also call it our working memory. And then the third component of phonological processing is naming speed, or rapid automatized naming. And that's how we quickly, effortlessly, without any conscious thought, how we recall and retrieve that memory. And that's going to be the focus of our day today. And we're going to unravel these two tasks even more. So we want to highlight an insight about phonological processing. And this is stated in the California Dyslexia Guidelines. And that is that the majority of people with dyslexia have a core deficit in phonological processing, not just phonological awareness, but that larger category of phonological processing. And it's crucial for us to remember that as we understand the mechanisms of that reading circuit. So now we're going to dive deeper into the main component of phonological awareness, and that's the units of sound. Okay, I'm going to return to this figure just to remind you where phonological memory lies underneath that bigger umbrella of phonological processing. So let's look at that first bullet point. When we talked about phonological memory, but how does it relate to the reading circuit? Well, it's holding that short-term information in working memory. Another example, besides the waiter remembering that food order, is way back in the day when we had to store a phone number temporarily in your working memory, and you're rushing to the phone to either dial the number or maybe writing it down. You were storing a phonological representation of the sounds of the digit names, the numbers, rather than a visual representation of the numeral. So in an academic situation, a phonological memory is an absolute workhorse. It's the powerhouse for these kids when they're decoding multisyllabic words and just easy CVC words too. So on multisyllabic, think about a 3-syllable word like elephant. Once you've decoded those first 2 syllables, we have to keep that in our memory long enough while our eyes are scanning and looking at the PHANT and then decoding that into FANT for the third and last syllable. So those are examples that lead us to bullet point 2 of why phonological memory plays such an important role in the reading circuit to read polysyllabic words. And finally, we can think of this phonological memory component, this memory process, that is a neural link between what we see on the printed page and when we start thinking about the meaning of the word, the semantics. There are actually 2 distinct kinds of memory, and we're going to look at both of them in depth, and we're going to have some fun with it too. So we just talked about phonological memory. That's remembering the oral, the auditory info, and the way it sounds. But there's another kind, and we call that semantic memory. And that is remembering words and their meanings. So in the reading circuit, as soon as we start attaching the letters to the sounds, we start thinking about words and what they mean. And I know we've all heard the word semantic before, but here is the brief and accepted definition. It's the way our mind makes sense of words and their meanings. So going back to the phonological memory, we hear the sounds like in shine. We actually remember the sounds in shine, and we know there's a final and silent E, but we're remembering just the sounds. So we don't even think about the E. We just hear the shine. And it's a way we hold the sounds in our memory, like George. Now, here's an example of semantic memory in play. Okay, monkey. I'm sorry, banana. I was jumping ahead. And so we do this through networks of associations and hierarchies and categorizations. And this is an example of our semantic memory when retrieving the information about the word banana. This is what my mind might look like when I retrieve information about banana. Oh yeah, it's yellow, never orange, that's its color. Oh yeah, it's a good food, there's great potassium. Oh, monkeys love it, that's an animal, you get it, right? And that's how our brains kind of go everywhere. And this is unlike phonological memory because it's the next step as we search for meaning. Okay, so let's have some fun with our memories. I want you to get a Post-it note or a scrap of paper and a pencil. I'll give you a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds. Okay, so here's your prompt. I'm going to give you 1 minute and I want you to name all the animals you can as quickly as you can. Now, don't write the word. You don't need to do that. Just use a tally mark. Now, no repeats. Are there any questions about the directions? All right, as fast as you can, begin now. All right, you got about 20 more seconds. And that's time. All right, tally it up, count them up, but don't put your number in the chat box yet. I'll give you a few seconds to tally. All right, put your total number in the chat box, but don't enter. On the count of 3, I'm going to say waterfall, and we're all going to press enter, and we will see a cascade of all of our numbers. 1, 2, 3, waterfall. Wow, my gosh. That's amazing. That's great. So as you were recalling all the animals, you were accessing your semantic memory. We had some superstars in there. Now we're going to test our phonological memory. And this time, name all the words you can think of that begin with the letter F as quickly as you can. Again, you don't need to write the word, just use a tally marks. But this time the rules are no repeats and no proper nouns. Okay, as fast as you can that begin words that begin with the letter F, go. It's fun to watch them all think. All right, 20 seconds. And time. All right, I'll give you a few seconds to tally it up. And again, don't put your numbers in the chat box yet. Okay, now put your total number in the chat box, but on the count of 3, I'm going to say waterfall again, and we're all going to press enter. 1, 2, 3, waterfall. Ah, interesting. So as you were recalling the words that begin with F, you were accessing your phonological memory. So let's talk about the differences between the two types of memory. At UCSF, this recently published study examined dyslexic students by administering that very same test that we all just did. And these students were between the ages of 8 and 12 years old. And what you notice here on the left-hand side in the green are the semantic memory results of these students. And what the researchers found was that students with dyslexia tend to have strengths in their semantic memory. So when it came to accessing the semantic area of their brain about animals and the word associations, they were very, very strong. Now let's look at the blue section on the right-hand side. And most of the dyslexic students were below the 10th percentile. So at most, they could name 6 or 7 words that start with the letter F. And I love this one kid, child 1, who put the F word because he didn't want to say the real F word, but that was pretty good. And when I did this experiment, I had similar results as well. And compare that to what we had here as teachers. And most of us had in 20s and 30s, we had some rock stars in the 40s and 50s, but we saw similar trends between the phonological and semantic memory, similar to this UCSF study. So there are 2 big findings here. One, phonological memory is where dyslexic students, that's where they really struggle. And 2, that semantic memory is really their strength. So we know that phase 2 of this study is to find out how to leverage that semantic memory for the students, and if there is a correlation between semantic strength and creativity. And it was interesting, I don't know if you remember, Luann, that George Ellis shared a really interesting observation.
Everything okay?
And, reminder just to
Oh,
mute.
good. I'm really glad to hear your voice.
Thank you. So George Ellis shared that after he does this activity with many groups of teachers, he occasionally found the opposite results because teachers tend to have a pretty strong phonological memory. So they do as well, sometimes better than semantic memory. But the important takeaway here is this last bullet point. Semantic memory seems to be the strength of students with dyslexia. And this is really important because it's that critical process after phonological memory in the reading circuit. And of course, there's a lot more information about this study that you can find in your digital resources. All right, so we had a chance to do the activity, and I hope it was fun and not too stressful. But now we have a chance to discuss these questions in your first breakout room. So we want you to consider, how does this new information change your understanding of phonological processing? How is the activity on phonological and semantic memory for you? And what do you wonder? So we're going to break out for about 7 minutes, and Luann's already created them. And she's also going to post those questions for you, so you'll have them.
Okay, so we're going to send you into your breakout rooms to have a discussion. There's about 3 to 4 people in each breakout room.
Okay.
Here comes everybody.
Welcome back.
Okay.
Oops.
Okay.
I'm going to stop share for a second and reshare. Sorry about that. There we go.
Okay.
Are we all back?
No, not yet. So,
Okay.
And there, we're pretty close. Yep. Yep.
All righty.
We're all back.
So now let's dive deeper into the other main component of phonological processing, and that is rapid automatized naming. And I'm just going to return to the figure to remind you where naming speed lies under the larger umbrella of phonological processing. Naming speed is also commonly referred to as RAN, and that stands for the rapid automatized naming. And rapid naming refers to the ability to quickly name digits, numbers, letters, objects, colors. And what it requires is this efficient retrieval of phonological information from long-term memory, the same type of ability that's the foundation of word identification decoding or orthographic mapping. And individuals who have deficits in both rapid naming and phonemic awareness appear to have greater difficulty learning to read words accurately and fluently than those that have deficits in just one of those abilities. And as we saw with the early activity of naming the words with the letter F, the timed 1 minute component was meant to assess how quickly you were able to retrieve the information. So that was an example of rapid naming. And here are two more that are very common in schools, like naming colors for younger children who don't know letter names yet. That's from the Lollipop or Brigance, and also letter naming fluency. And this probably looks very familiar to all of you because that's Dibbles, right? I have a funny story. I had this little guy many years ago, and he knew all his letters and his numbers. And every time I would show him he would see 8 and he would go round circle, or this G right here would be round circle hook, or H would be line, line, line. And oh my gosh, it was so frustrating, but so darn cute, right? Luann, you have a funny story too.
Yeah, I did the middle one, the colors with the child. I was just trying to, figure out about dyslexia and sometimes with the rapid naming. And so I'm giving the color one and it was sunset red, burnt orange. I'm like, he's giving me all the Koran colors. And I'm like, this is a 1 minute time test.
So that's an only in kindergarten moment, oink,
exactly.
right? So, all right. So we're gonna, you have in your digital resources a link to the Padlet. So go to the Padlet, and if you want to grab some big ideas, make a comment, maybe some musings, or even questions that you might have. And we will look at those. I'll call them up. And Luann put that in the chat as well. And if you have, we don't own this Padlet, so we couldn't change the settings. It will say anonymous. So if you have a really burning question, make sure you say your name, and then we could either respond now or maybe after the session with an email. By practicing rapid naming exercises, students, could they improve?
The rapid naming is, I think, it's more those types of things are helping us with diagnostic and doing that, which is what Dibbles really does take care of. I think with letters and everything else, what you're doing is you're trying to get them to get letter recognition and being able to understanding their sounds and things like that. And that would help them then improve. Yeah. But that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. All right. So now we're going to move. I'm going to hand it over to Luann. Oh, Luann, you're unmuted, sweetie.
All right. I'm at 2 different screens and I couldn't find the mute button. I was going to address real quick here. We can't ask regarding design for special ed. One of my colleagues in CRLP, Molly, is actually the director for CRLP for the SPED. And so I know that they do offer some trainings, and through her, they definitely sometimes embedded in some of the results trainings. So that is something. So at the end, you can go onto the CRLP website, but also they have on their webpage at Berkeley. You can check that out as well. But it is something that they are working on because with CRLP, everything, really, we do a lot of inside the classroom analysis of what's going on, what works and what doesn't, and then that becomes a larger part of our institute. So we take the research and we put it into practice, and then we figure out what works well, and then that's what becomes our institute's programs. Okay, so let me see if I can get this here. Okay, I did not want to do that. All righty. Technical difficulties. I'm hitting the wrong button. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing screen for just a second. Okay, and I think all righty. So Christy, I'll let you just talk about the stuff on the Padlet right now, and I'm going to pull up my thing again. It disappeared on me.
Okay, going back to the Padlet, will we get a program that teaches all of this better than Wonders? Agreed, that's a great question. Yeah, we are really pushing hard that we all get the CRLP training, TK through grade 8. We did this about more than 20 years ago, and unfortunately all those teachers have retired. And I know you guys use CRLP type, well, you probably use the testing, the assessments, etc. But we haven't had the training, right? And I know that this is a concern for a lot of teachers that want to expand their knowledge base. So yes, I think we can. We're pushing for that. And you know what? Make some noise, you guys. Make some stink, and just say we need this and demand it. I think it's really important, because I think if we had any big box program, and if we have the knowledge base, you're the experts, we can make it work. So.
Okay, thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
How's that looking?
Yay.
Okay, I'll try not to hit the wrong button again. Okay, and so I'm just going to do an overview, again, building upon some of the things that George talked about November 1st, about the phonological awareness and its role. So it comes with this umbrella of phonological processing, and Christy went into this with the detail. And so we're talking a little bit more about that phonological awareness is here, and under which fits the phonemic awareness and all of the tasks that go along with that. So with this, it is definitely a component of our foundational skills, and it does differ from our phonemic awareness, because phonemic awareness is under the bigger umbrella of phonological awareness. Just like if we had a VW Bug, the car, it would go under that's a subcategory of the broader category of vehicles. And then in this, we also have phonological awareness is done over two main components, the size units, and then there are also differing tasks and skills. It does not involve print. You can do this in the dark with the lights out. And we know that it is difficulty in this phonological processing is the most common cause of dyslexia. A lot of studies around that, conversations. And so when we're talking about the different sizes of units of sound, you're starting with the easier, you're looking at the words. So for example, you have rain, bow, cow, boy, moving into your syllables, like in picnic, apple, strawberry, onset rhyme. We have at, or ice, and then into the individual phonemes, like when you're segmenting out at. So this is going to be far easier here, and getting down on the continuum where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So you see these children have a little bit easier time, and then doing this, and then once they're building upon that, then they're getting into the more harder individual phonemes. Okay, and so now we're going to take a little bit about what are those skills and what those skills look like. Okay, so on the session in November, some of the skills that you went through were rhyming, identifying the last and first sound, and then blending. And those, again, on the continuum of skills, it's going to be far easier into the more difficult. So the more difficult tasks that we ask of our early readers, I'm going to be into segmenting and then into manipulation. And we're going to be spending a little bit more time today looking at oral segmenting. Okay, it definitely is a skill that students, oftentimes it's really needing to be explicitly taught and supported as you're working with the students. And so we are going to take a look at a video of using these Phoneme boxes to help students with this lesson. And so as you're watching this, I'm going to give you a purpose for watching. When you're watching this video, I really want you to pay attention to her hand position and how she is cueing the students with this task. Both of those are really essential and important. So please pay close attention to where the hand and the finger sweep is going, as well as then what she's cueing. So I'm going to go ahead and start this.
So now I'm going to model oral segmenting, and with segmenting, we separate the sounds in the word. I'm going to sweep under as I say the word and then point to each box as each sound is given by the students. So say the word mat, sound mat. That's right. At. Say the word sit, sound sit. Say the word fed, sound fed. Say the word tap, sound tap. Say the word kick, sound kick.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So let me just close this up. Alrighty. Readjusting everything. Okay, so I hopefully you were able to then kind of see where she was putting her hand position and then her cues that she was giving to the students. Because we are going to take a moment to really look at it, and we're going to give you an opportunity to practice this. And so we're going to, the prompts for the students, as you can see when she was using the Phoneme boxes, she was, she's pointing to the left of the, I'm going to do my little one here, saying she's pointing to the left of the first box and say the sounds in the word that I say. So first you're going to say the word mat, and they're sweeping across. Now sound mat, and she's pointing it to as each of the sounds. So you're really using the Phoneme boxes to help with this. Other activities can be used with the kids. Sometimes they have them pushing the little chips inside there as well. But it's something that, it really helps them realize, we're looking with the three sounds here. So we're going to give you guys an opportunity. I'm going to go over it in just a moment, a little bit more detail about what your expectations are. But right now, I would like you to take a piece of paper and get a piece of paper that you can draw your Phoneme boxes on. Okay, we're going to give you a second to get that if you don't have it handy, or if a whiteboard, if you're in a classroom, you have a small whiteboard and you want to do that. And then write down these 5 words here: mat, sit, fed, tap, and kick. These are the words that you're going to be using to practice this.
Luann, while they do that, I'm trying to set up the breakout rooms. I have a maximum of 50.
Oh.
Yeah, and I tried to go into the settings to change that, and I guess you can't do that.
Okay.
So
we can deal with that.
Yeah, we'll deal with it.
Okay, we will deal with that when I get this going, and then we'll see.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we can maybe modify that a little bit.
Okay.
All righty. That's a bummer. Okay.
Yeah. So
now, what am I going to be asking you to do? And just so you know, I'm not asking you to do anything that I have not done myself. You're going to be going into your own breakout room. I'm not sure if we're going to have everybody in their own breakout room. And so, but we'll do our best to figure out a way in which we can accommodate this. And you're going to be inside your breakout room, and inside your breakout room, then you're going to do a flip grid. And in the flip grid, you're going to record yourself doing this activity in this routine with those 5 words that I gave you. What you're going to do is you're going to hold up your board or your L-Conan boxes, and you're going to record yourself doing all that whole routine, you know, say the word and doing the sounds there. So you're going to be modeling it. We're not sharing it with anyone, so you don't have to worry about that. This is for you to kind of see it. You can view it back, but really paying attention, because sometimes when we're doing it so automatically and not really paying attuned to where our finger is. For example, say the word, you're not putting it underneath any of the sounds yet. And then you're doing the sweep as you're having them say the word. So these are little fine tuning things that you can use in your instruction and routines with the students. And so let me just do that. So are there any questions? I think I have something in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, here. Thank you, Joe. Matt, sit, fed, tap, kick.
All of the instructions are inside the flip grid. So once you go into the flip grid, and we're going to, I think, Christy, you're going to drop that into the chat, right?
Yes.
Flip grid.
So sorry.
Yeah, that's great. So Christy's going to plop that into the chat. You're going to, and so we're going to ask that you open that up first. You can also, if you wanted to do it maybe on your camera, you can use this QR code. We need you to make sure that you turn off your Zoom audio and video so that you're not projected still here in the larger room. Okay. And I think, okay, we have questions. Okay.
There's the flip grid.
And so the words will also be inside the
flip grid. Yeah.
flip grid too. So
All right.
have that in there. And so are there any questions besides that and doing that? And then I think that what we'll do is, since we have more participants than we do have availability for breakout rooms.
Yeah.
I think we will put you into those 50 breakout rooms. We'll kind of see who goes into that, and then we'll talk to those people that are left behind and see what they say.
Yeah.
So why
Sound
don't
good, you guys?
does that sound good?
Okay.
Okay, and I just want to say, I know this, I had to do this, and I was doing this with Gail, who was the person presenting, and I had to drive with my husband up to Reno at the time, so I'm in my car, I'm doing this, and he's acting to be my student, and he wasn't doing it right. When I asked him to segment, he was blending, so we were doing this, and so it was, you know, a funny moment. So I think Zoom taught us that we could do it from anywhere. So you guys are hopefully in the privacy of your classroom or your house, and so it won't be so intimidating.
If people are needing access to the flip grid, I think it's CRLP 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just, click on guest password instead of logging into anything. So thank you. Yes. Thank you, Madeline.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that one. I don't think, yes, just go as a guest.
Okay.
Needed it, CRLP 2021. Are we good? Okay.
Are we good? All right. Here come the 50 breakout rooms.